Revelation 4114. From the 28th till the 30th of August 1947. God as teacher also through mediators. Only those who are actively engaged also in an earthly respect will ever be able to be mediators from me to people. They must be willing and able to work constantly. For I demand this when someone starts work with me, and must demand it all the more when it is a matter of training a servant who serves me and preparing him for an activity. Only someone who is dutiful and diligent in an earthly respect can be called upon for work which certainly touches the spiritual but also requires the use of physical strength, which thus can be called earthly to a certain extent. Thus, anyone who is deemed suitable for this work by me will be given my gift of grace, which can then be regarded as coming forth from his hands until the fellow human being tackles the work himself. To shape his soul according to my will, which is made known to him through the gift of grace offered from above. Then he will understand the urgency of a transmission from above and recognize the purely spiritual task of the one who is active on my behalf. But anyone who disregards this working on the soul will never consider the announcements to come from above, but will only see earthly work in them, which, in his opinion, is completely useless. But I attach great importance to it and will not slacken to remind my servants of the urgency as well, and I always admonish them anew to be extremely active and not to let themselves be disconcerted by disparaging words of fellow human beings, for it concerns the highest, it concerns the soul's fate in eternity. Whoever seriously keeps this in mind will also pay more attention to the announcements, and they will not remain without success. But in order to be able to receive the announcements, the recipient must first believe that they come from above. If this belief is missing, then it is also not possible for beings of light to intervene in the thoughts of the receiver. And then the fellow human being is also inclined to believe in human influence and rejects it. Faith in my working in the human being through my spirit is absolutely necessary in order to receive such a gift of grace from me. And therefore, it will be rare that I can express myself in this way, despite people's will to live in my will and despite faith in me, my love, omnipotence and wisdom. For only faith causes the human being to listen inwards, and then he can hear the inner voice if he is sensitive, that is, if he can interpret every sensation. For hearing the inner voice is a refined feeling and likewise a necessity, for establishing a connection from the earthly to the spiritual kingdom requires thoughts turned towards the spiritual kingdom, which, however, must be paired with the firm will to serve God. Both of these factors provide the human being with refined sensitivity, and only through this is it possible to hear my voice. Yet the time to come is so difficult and will make people of little faith waver. But I give every person the opportunity to take note of the eternal truth and therefore not only speak directly but through mediators to all people, thus they receive the same, so to speak, as the servants on earth who are directly taught by me, only that I speak to them through their mouth in order to eliminate a compulsion of faith in those who are still weak in faith. For the word spoken by me must be offered to them in such a way that they can accept it of their own free will or also reject it. And therefore I also reserve the method of transmission for myself by also putting the words into my servants' mouths in a way which is most helpful to their fellow human beings in order to stimulate them to think. And therefore the conversations will also take the course which I deem favorable, that is, my servants will speak as it is my will, if they speak up for my word, if they work for me. Thus if they have conversations within the scope of the spiritual. Where the human being is sensitive, he has to be touched if their words are not to remain without impression, and where he is in erroneous thinking the battle has to start, for error has to be fought first, and this cannot be achieved with tolerance, with consideration for old tradition. Anyone who fights for me must fight with the sword of his mouth. He must not become unfaithful to me for the sake of people. My word must be more important to him than the affection of a person whose life or views contradict my word. And therefore I choose fearless, intrepid fighters on earth who uncover the slightest contradiction against my word, who eagerly speak up for everything they have heard through the inner voice, who, once they have recognized my truth, give it up no more and use every opportunity to spread it. And their work will be blessed. However, the extent to which it is successful for fellow human beings is entirely up to their will and desire for truth. For their will is free. I want to help people recognize the truth and offer it to them. However, I do not coerce them to accept it but give them their freedom. Amen.